Hello, everyone. This is Heartwoods Haven, and I am your host, Brandy Swords. And we have a special guest today, Jessica Baldwin.
Hey.
Thank you for coming on, Jessica.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you on. And I love working with you, doing the different NAMI stuff. And you're just doing such big things with NAMI and everything.
And I don't even know how it's happening. It's just one thing right after another. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Okay, I'll do it. Yeah, it just keeps rolling. So I'm like, as long as it's rolling, I'll roll with it.
And now, what was the award that you won?
So it was the CIT family member of the, family member with lived experience, I believe is what it was. And which completely caught me off guard. I had no idea it even existed, first of all. And yeah, apparently they'd been trying to get a hold of me for like a week, and I didn't recognize the number, so I kept sending it to voicemail.
Yeah, that would be me. I'd be like, I don't know that person.
Finally, Joanna had to call me, and she said, Jess, there's going to be a lady calling you. Answer your phone. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, of course. She said, I can't tell you. I was like, okay.
Yeah, and this is a surprise. You're like, okay, so
yeah.
Awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. It was very humbling. Yeah. Very, not anything that I expected, but I very much appreciate just people paying attention to my story, I reckon. So yeah, very humbling.
Facing things. Well, talking about your story, would you like to tell everyone about your story?
Sure. I've got a million, but mom's the one that really, I get kind of emotional when I talk about mom, you know. So my mom was diagnosed with schizophrenia when she was 26. And up until that point, everybody who knew mom knew that she was going to go on to do great things because she was very, very intelligent. She won all kinds of awards in school and stuff like that, and she was just very highly intelligent. And so this kind of came on, and it was before I was born. So I know what stories I hear from family, and I know, what little bit my brother and my sister, had to go through, but I never knew mom any other way. I was 31, or she was 31 when I was born. So I didn't know her any other way. She was just mom,
Yeah.
And she was mom that talked to people I couldn't see, and I always knew that was odd. And I guess, growing up, there were times that I was embarrassed, it's like, mom quit doing that, but at the same time, she was so loving and so supportive and so, her strength was just, her strength just to go on. We were so poor because, her dad my dad and her got divorced when I was about 4. And my dad had gotten hurt on the railroad. And then, mom was diagnosed with a schizophrenia. And, so the lifestyle that they had, we didn't have anymore. Mom wasn't able to work. Dad wasn't able to work. They got divorced. They had bought a farm here in Southern Ohio in Jackson County years before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
So mom moved with us 3 kids, down here, and we were so poor. Oh my gosh, we were so poor.
Yeah.
Electric was a luxury we would have it for a couple months, then we wouldn't, and we'd have it and we wouldn't. And we got our water from a well.
Mm-hmm.
That we literally went out and drew the water out of, sorry, I have to I'm
Oh,
making
you're
noise.
fine.
Um,
I'm by my light.
But we had to go out and draw it out with a bucket. We had an outhouse, and things were dire. I mean, they really were. And to watch Mom fight through that with mental illness, raising 3 babies. I mean, I say babies. My brother's 11 years older than I am, and my sister's 8 years older than I am. So I guess they weren't babies. I was a baby. But Mom trying to raise us 3 kids, and dad at that time, he had an alcohol problem. And I mean, Mom just pushed us so hard to become somebody, And I remember her telling me one time, she said, no matter how poor we are, as long as you keep learning, people will take you seriously.
Oh,
And
yes.
I mean, she always pushed bettering yourself and getting off that holler. She'd say, we got to get off this holler. We can't, we lived up in the holler and, and to us, it was the greatest place on earth. I still think it's the greatest place on earth, but she wanted us to get out of there and make something out of ourselves, no matter how poor we are, no matter what kind of hand we'd been dealt. She just never stopped pushing us. And I'm happy to say that we're all doing fairly good, and we've overcome living up in the hollow, and the old farmhouse with the kitchen floor would freeze over when you would mop it in the winter. But Mom was just so amazing. And I remember her riding her bicycle back and forth to school, or back and forth to work, I'm sorry, from Beaver to Jackson.
Wow.
And that's like 15 miles one way, and she would ride her bicycle every day back and forth to work because we didn't have a car. And I remember doing that. I remember us passing her on the way home. She was riding her bicycle home, and the school bus passed, and I was on the school bus, and I remember somebody saying something and making fun of her. And that didn't go over well with me. And I got put off the bus that day. But, I mean, it's just those things that I watched her overcome, even with the mental illness. I said, now that I know what schizophrenia is, because schizophrenia was never spoken of in our home. I didn't even know what Mom's diagnosis was until I was 42 years old. And my aunt told me, and she was just like, she said, just that your mom, it was schizophrenia that she was diagnosed with. And I said, no, I didn't know that. Everybody always called it a nervous breakdown, and we didn't discuss it. And Mom would never admit that there was anything wrong with her, because she was always the smartest person in the room, and she wasn't about to say, yeah, I have schizophrenia,
Yeah.
And so it was interesting growing up. But I said, my sister and I were talking about the other day, and my brother and I too, and it was just like, we never, ever, ever doubted how much Mom loved us. I mean, she would lay right down and die for us, and we knew it, and I mean, even though we were dirt poor, and I mean, just, I could go on for days. There's so much, but we were so poor, and everything just always seemed like we were just waiting on the next thing to happen, But in the same sense, we were so happy, I mean, I remember Mom reading to me. She would read and read and read and read to me. I remember watching her make my sister's prom dress from scratch, and it was the prettiest prom dress, at the whole prom. And I remember her quilting and I remember, my brother, he would go out, and I remember telling my brother one time, if you don't go out and kill something, we're going to starve to death, and he did. He went out and he killed a rabbit, and they had to lie to me and tell me it was chicken because I refused to eat it. But I mean, it's little things like that that just stick with you, and you're thinking, how did I get through that? How did we survive, and how did Mom handle all of that stress?
Yes.
With just the voices alone, the voices alone that were constant.
Yeah.
How did she handle that and raise 3 kids that all turned out pretty good? I mean, we're all very God oriented, and we're all Christians, and we're all, we all work hard, I mean, and she, I just don't know. I just don't know I don't know how she done it. I said, if I'm half the woman that she was, I've made it, because I mean, I've seen her do. She never, ever, ever quit pushing. She would go to work, and I mean, she worked all the time. I think maybe there was 1 or 2 times that she couldn't find work down here in Southern Ohio. But then she went to Columbus. She went back to Columbus, and she lived at the YWCA until, and I lived with my cousin, and Mom said, I've got to go find work. She said, as soon as I get something and get a place to live, she said, I'll come and get you. And I said, okay. And she did. And I moved to Columbus with her. I mean, it was just, I don't know. She was just an amazing mom, mental illness and all. And I think that's what people don't understand. They think mental illness is a death sentence, and it's not. It's, you may have to work harder. Yeah, you may have to work harder at things. You may have to have a little more grit. But, I mean, in the end, you can have a decently normal life, and you can succeed, and you can make an impact. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, that it's not the end of the world. And now there's more resources than ever. Growing up, I can't imagine what Mom would have been like had she had today's medication.
Yeah.
She was never, ever, ever medicated, ever. And she still was such a good mother, and I can't imagine if she had today's medication, today's therapy, how much better things would have been for her. So I don't know. I just think about stuff like that all the time.
And it's amazing, like her strength, like you said. I mean, growing up, did you feel like when you started seeing her talk to voices, did you feel like it was just, how did you feel? Like you were a child, right? When she started talking to voices?
Well, she was doing it before I was ever born, so I never knew her any other way.
Oh, okay.
It didn't really. I don't have any memories of it until I was probably, 6, 7, 8, to where I started paying attention. I remember I would say stuff like, who are you talking to? And she would say so-and-so, or nobody, or Mom was always fighting a battle of good versus evil. And it was always like God had prepared her for this time, and she was constantly fighting battles that we could not see. And she would tell me that. She'd be like, I am fighting a battle that you wouldn't understand right now, and someday maybe you will, But she never ever was like embarrassed. Like if I'd said, who are you talking to? She'd be like, either it's none of my business, or she would explain to me, who she's talking to. And then I remember one day I came home from school and I was all excited because I had decided I wanted to join band. Mm-hmm. And of all things, I wanted to play the trumpet. I have no idea why. And I was so excited. And I came home and she was having a particularly stressful day that day. And I think I lost you, Brandy. It says network. Oh. But anyway, she was having are you back?
There we go.
Okay.
Yes, I don't know what happened. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I don't know either. I was like, I think I lost you. But she was having a stressful day that day, and she was really having a deep conversation with somebody. And I was way too excited. I didn't have time for her to be talking to nobody else, And I remember I had her, she was standing in front of me, and I put my hands on her shoulders like this, and I said, Mom. And she said, and I said, I need you to, I said, quit talking to whoever you're talking to. I said, I need you to listen to me. And she said, okay, baby, what do you need? Just like that. And wow. I was like, I want to join band. And she was like, you do? She said, what do you want to play? And I said, the trumpet. And she said, oh dear.
Yeah. So did you play the trumpet?
Yes. And now I just told you how poor we were. So there was no comprehensible way we were going to get a trumpet. Mm-hmm. And I remember it was probably 2 weeks later, I came home from school and I walked in the door and she had a brand new trumpet laying out in the case on the couch open.
Wow.
And I was so excited. To this day, I don't know how she bought it. I don't know how she bought it. I mean, she was working at the time, but I knew we did not have the money to go get this. I don't know to this day. But yeah, I played the trumpet for 6 years. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, like you said, for her to come out, even like when you were asking her, like who you were talking to, she's had a regular conversations like, hey, this is who I'm talking to. This is what's going on. And that just became, like you said, just the norm.
Yes, it was so normal. And I would get embarrassed. Like if my friends were around and I seen her, because you could tell by the look on her face when she was getting ready to get somebody down the road. And I would try to distract her. I would be like, Mom, and just try to distract her from that. So, but, there were times that friends seen it or whatever, and I remember being real embarrassed by it. And I know they thought she was odd, and, some of her own family members thought she was odd. But the funny thing is anybody that you would ask now, if you said, tell me about Betty Spencer.
Yeah.
Hands down across the board, they would say, she's the strongest person I've ever known. And that's her legacy. The schizophrenia is not even thought about. Her legacy is she is the strongest person ever. She started preaching at 14 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and then at 17 years old, she was packing out revivals, and and then here at 26, she's diagnosed with schizophrenia. It's not anything anybody ever seen coming, and but yeah, she was great. I could sit and tell stories about Mom all day long. I could make you laugh. I could make you cry. It's just, yeah.
How did you feel when you actually heard that was her diagnosis? How did it make you feel? Did it kind of like connect everything, or like, oh, how did you feel when you actually heard that's what she had?
It connected everything, but I also felt like I'd been punched in the stomach.
Mm.
And it was because when you hear schizophrenia, that scares people.
Yeah.
And at 42 years old, it scared me. It was like, no, my mom did not have schizophrenia. I mean, because it's so taboo.
Yes.
People don't deal with it. They don't talk about it. And I said, had I grown up hearing the word schizophrenia, maybe it wouldn't have had such an impact on me when I did hear it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so funny what even got us talking about it. I was getting my bachelor's in psychology. And that's the conversation that led up to my aunt telling me that was mom's diagnosis.
Wow.
And at this time, my husband and I are taking care of mom because she had had a massive stroke at 69, massive stroke. And she was completely bedridden and she was completely paralyzed on her left side. And the stroke, kind of led into dementia. And so we were dealing, and so for 8.5 years, Tony and I took care of her, and so I thought, well, what better time to go back to school? I'm here anyway, 24/7. That's where I was at. So I went back to school, and so between my education, my life experience, I did start putting things together and thinking, oh, now that makes sense,
Yeah. And you're right, because of the stigma. I mean, you hear that and people, and like with your story, it's beautiful because you can tell both sides. You can,
Right.
Even her being a loving mom and all these different things. But as soon as people hear that word, it's a whole reaction, So I love that you're telling both sides of it. That's the point, that you can live with that and have a normal life is what it is.
I said I've always felt like I would love to get a group of people together, and I would love to tell them this story about this missionary's daughter who graduated high school at 16, who preached at 14, who, was this amazing mother, amazing businesswoman, very intelligent, and her come from a family. Her father was a college professor. Her mom was a school teacher. Her mom was a school teacher.
Wow.
And I would love to tell this whole story of these amazing people and this amazing woman, and what a beautiful, wonderful mother she was, and all of the wonderful things she done. And then at the very end, I would like to say, and she had schizophrenia.
Yes.
And I would love to see how the dynamic of the group change at that point, and just end it like that. And I would just love to see how somebody could, how people reacted to that, because when you start off that she has schizophrenia, it's kind of like that's what sticks with people.
Yeah.
And she was so much more than that, and she had schizophrenia, but it didn't have her. So
yeah, exactly. We talk about that. It's like, it doesn't define you. That was
right.
a part of her. That's what she had, but that's not all she was. And you're
Exactly.
right. I love that. Would be an amazing book, because you would tell everything, and you're right at the end, and people would be like, huh? So you're right. Susan, word, it would not even matter.
Yeah. I've always thought about that because people, it's like when you say the word schizophrenia, it makes people feel awkward, I think.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think people, they hear that, and it's all the stigma with everything. We've talked about any kind of mental illness, and like my situation, if I talk about anything to, do with suicide or anxiety or depression, some people shut down. They're like, that's all they hear. They don't hear anything else. And I love that you're talking about your mom like that, because there's so much more to your mom than that. And you can tell that love side. And I think people need to realize that, she was a beautiful mom, the amazing things that she did for you guys, and to hear the strength that she had. 3 kids. I mean, you know how hard that is to raise kids, you know?
let alone being, yeah.
Yeah.
Let alone having that on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
exactly. I'm like, it's hard enough to raise kids, you know what I mean? And
yes,
I'm, you know, growing up, and like you said, even like people on the bus, you know, making fun of her or different things. It's a horrible thing to have to go through because people don't understand, you
right.
know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and they say things that they shouldn't say. And you know, as kids, people will make fun of things or talk about things, and you're like,
Mm,
they don't understand. But you as a person, you're like, that hurts. That's your mom. They don't understand.
yeah. And my sister used to laugh at me because I'm the mouthy one in the family, and she said, I'm always the first one to fight with mom, but I was always the first one to fight for her too. You know, I mean, because I'd lay somebody out over my mama. You
Yeah,
know, I mean,
exactly.
and,
Yes, exactly. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to defend her. So it doesn't matter. Hmm.
right.
And how,
Mm.
yeah. And how was it like being her caretaker? I mean, how was that? Because, you know, being a caretaker is hard in general, you know, and take care of a, you know, loved one. How did you like have take time for yourself when you do that all the time?
I
How did
didn't.
you do that?
I didn't. And that's one thing that I would tell everybody. Um, you take that time for yourself and you don't feel guilty about it, because I didn't take that time for myself. I had 5 days of respite each month, you know, through hospice.
Mm-hmm.
And um, mom wasn't um, terminal, but she was declining. So they, you know, they kept her on hospice for a good few years. And
Mm-hmm.
so they would give me those 5 days, and I would feel so guilty if I took those 5 days that I would go there to see her every day.
Mm.
You know, I couldn't even be 5 days away from her without the guilt just eating me alive. And
Yeah.
Tony would tell me, he would be like, you can't, you know, you can't feel guilty for this. You need this. And I'd say, but she didn't want to go, you know, and it tore my heart out.
Yeah.
And as far as self-care, Tony would say, okay, you've had enough. He would know when I was getting ready to break, you know, you've had enough. I'll take care of your mom. You go to Walmart, you know, and I would go to Walmart and just walk around for a couple hours just to, you know, just to breathe.
Yes.
Because, I mean, you know, she was bedridden. It was bedpans and changing diapers and things that I never thought I would have to do for my mom, because
Yeah.
she was invincible, you know,
Yeah.
um and I mean, just making sure that she was eating healthy, making sure that she never got bed sores, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to say that in 8.5 years she did never get a bed sore, you
Amazing.
know. um but it was so, I mean, I remember sitting in the corner of her room one time just bawling my eyes out because I really felt like I couldn't take no more. Because
Yeah.
she would say, well, there was one particular time she said, Jessica, for 24 hours, every 5 minutes,
Mm.
nonstop. It's like she didn't remember 5 minutes prior, that she had just hollered for me
Yeah.
all night long. I didn't sleep that night. It was all night long. And then I remember her saying, Jess, there's a mouse in my mouth.
Mm.
And I was like, all right, I'm coming. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I mean, and that's what you gotta do. It's you gotta kind of like gotta laugh too and cry too at the same time. But it's so many emotions going on, you know.
I know. I mean, it was sometimes we're hysterically funny because one time I dropped her in the floor from the Hoyer lift.
Uh-huh.
Um, the hydraulics went and the whole Hoyer lift, the whole front of it, and there was mom laying in the floor, and I just laid in the floor beside her and I started laughing. Tony wasn't home, and I started laughing and I said, "Well, now what are we gonna do?" And
Yeah.
she said, "I guess we'll make her wait on Tony."
But you gotta laugh at yourself because that's how I feel. I'm like, I enjoy laughing at myself. I think that's the biggest thing because
Yes,
I'd rather laugh than cry sometimes. And I
yeah.
did that one time. I was like, I'm gonna jump off this rock and do that pose where I like kick my legs behind me. Well, my brain said I'm gonna do that, but my body said no. I jumped off and I hit that ground so hard, my knees went boop, and I just
Oh
laid
my
there
God.
probably 5 minutes and just cackled for 5 minutes at myself.
It's
It
like
was so bad.
that is one of those laugh or cry moments. It's like, well, you might as well laugh because it is
Yeah,
what it is at this point. Yeah.
yeah. I was like, I just laugh at myself now because I'm like, I still think I can do things, and my body's like, you can't, but I still
You
want to
cannot do
try.
that.
So
Yes. I said, I don't know how at 53, because in my head, I'm still 17. So
yes,
there is
me
nothing
too.
I can't do,
Yeah,
until I get down and my knee says, now what are you going to do when you're, yeah, I got a bum left knee. And I said, now what? It's just like, well, you're stuck here now. So yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
know, and that's how it is with life. And I'm like, I woke up and I said, "What happened? Where'd my life go? How did my body become this? Why is my hip moving this way?" Or I woke up and I feel
Exactly.
sore today. I'm like,
Yes. I I laugh at me and Tony because both of us get up, and when we wake up, we're so stiff trying to walk, and it's like, what happened to us? It's like you practically have to lift one leg up and put it in front of the other until you get moving. And I
yeah,
said, if anybody ever seen us when we get up in the morning, they'd laugh. Yeah, for sure. Mhm.
yeah, exactly. That's how I feel. So and it's such a weird thing because I'm like you, and it's a different position when you're taking care of your parent when they took care of you. It's a whole
Oh my
different
God.
mindset, and just finding support groups, resources, and
Mhm.
so was it mainly you and your husband that took care of your mom?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was. Well, we had got a house in Portsmouth because it was big enough to, the doorways and stuff were big enough to accommodate mom's Hoyer lift and her wheelchair and that kind of thing. And so we lived in Portsmouth for like 12 years, and my sister and brother still live here in Pike County.
Mm.
And so just the traveling and stuff, and I was there all the time, so for them, they'd have to travel and stuff, and sometimes they would come down, like, it let us go to like the kids play or something like that, but most I mean most of the time it was just me and him, I mean. And
Yeah.
thank goodness for, I mean, I can never sing the praises of hospice nurses and the aides and stuff. I can't sing their praises enough because I mean they were absolutely amazing. I mean, they'd come in and give mom her bath. I mean, just them coming in for an hour to give her a bath 3 times a week was like an hour I could go lay on the bed and not do nothing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I'll never be able to quit thanking them for everything they've done for us. Mm.
And I think you're right. It's hard. It's hard because did you feel like the weight of the world was on your shoulders? It's like you're doing an amazing thing. You're doing things because I'm like that. I'm like I feel like I should do everything I can possibly do, but
Mhm.
I think talk about too. It is hard. It is very hard to
It,
do a beautiful, loving thing because it still is hard. It's still a weight, and
I,
I get that.
I, I would tell anybody that will listen. Being a caregiver is the hardest job in the world. It is so hard. It is so mentally, it could mentally break you. I could totally see how it could mentally break you. And I thought there was times it had. And I mean, because there were times mom could be very difficult, as the dementia progressed. Oh, she could be so difficult. And then there's times she could be so funny. And so you had those roller coasters, all the time. She talked to me for a month in Spanish.
Wow.
When she was little, her and her sisters went to an all Mexican school in El Paso, because my grandpa was a missionary, and my grandpa and grandma, and my grandpa's taught at an all Mexican school. And so mom and her sisters learned Spanish. Well, so here she is in this bed with dementia, and she just starts talking in Spanish one day, and for a solid month, I could not get her to talk to me in English.
Wow.
And she was doing it on purpose. She thought it was hysterical.
Oh,
and I knew enough to where I could most of the time make out what she was saying. But then there'd be times I'd be like, Mom, you're going to have to tell me in English because I can't get what you're saying. And she would laugh. She would think that was so funny. And I'd say, you're being rotten. And she knew she was. And but those were the little things that things that I'll never forget that make me laugh. It's like, why she done that? I have no idea. But I think it was just to torture me because she thought it was hysterical. So, yeah.
And it's amazing because it sounds like, you've had God in your family, well, since, your mom was little, and the church and missionary.
Oh.
I mean, it's amazing that, everything going on, and maybe that's why she was so strong in all the situations and everything, to go through all that and to raise you guys and to live that.
I can tell you 1,000% that it was all God. He was with us through it all. And, and that's another thing I'd fight over. If anybody ever told me any different, I'd probably pop them in the nose. But, there are just things that you cannot get through in life without knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that God was behind it all, because as humans, we don't have that much strength.
I agree.
So I know that's who it was, and I know that it's generations of. Even my dad got saved later on in life, and I believe that a lot of that was due to mom's faith all those years. Even though they divorced, they were married for 16 years. So even though they divorced, I do believe that it was a lot of stuff she put into him. And he was able to quit drinking, and he got saved. I think he was 60, Wow. And, but I feel like I've been so blessed to come from a family of brilliance. God first and foremost, always, from the time I was little. That was 2 lessons that mom taught me. Never stop learning and always put God first. That was and then, my grandma and grandpa, and then my grandma and grandpa on both sides before them. And, it just, I just feel like that faith and that, I don't know I don't even know what word I'm looking for, but just the perseverance push through was all because God was behind them, pushing them, so.
Yeah. And I'm like you, I've seen way too many miracles and things happen in my life that I have to
Oh,
believe. You know, I'm like, there's no way these things would happen. God exists. God's here. He has
yeah,
saved me. I would not be here today for him. The roads I've been on, different situations, I would not be here. So I completely agree. God had me. God knew I had to be here,
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
You got me a little emotional now.
I
Um,
know. I try not to. I
yeah,
try not to get emotional. I'm like, I try to hold it back so I can try to at least talk, but it's hard. It's very hard.
it is, and I that it just took me back to one of those times that mom wanted to commit suicide, and I know that God's the reason that you know it didn't happen, but it wasn't like she didn't try, and
Yeah.
when the voices would get too much, and I remember her telling me she thought she damaged me. Um,
Mm.
said that she had sat in the corner. She was 8 months pregnant with me, and she said she had sat in the kitchen and she screamed and she screamed and she screamed. She said, trying to get the voices to go away.
Oh.
And she said, I screamed so long and so loud. She said, I was afraid that I damaged you. And she was telling me this, and this is a really serious conversation. And I looked at her and I said, Mom, I'm perfectly normal. She said, she was like, she said, oh, brother.
She's like, you're not normal, but at least you're okay.
I tell that story all the time. I said, everybody knows I'm perfectly normal.
I know, and I've talked to people because we're like, what's really normal? Because I'm the same way. I'm like, I'm not normal. I don't think I fit in different categories. I'm like, I don't want to be
Yeah,
normal if that's what it is, because
I,
I definitely am not.
I don't want to be normal. I mean, what fun is that?
It's
Yeah,
not any fun. I'm like, I'll pass. I'm good.
that's right. That's me too. I'm just like, yeah, I'm a weirdo and I know it. So, you know.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I think I'm like you. You get to a point in your life where you just embrace it.
You do.
Like we talk
Yeah,
about, people are going to love you. They're not going to love you. It doesn't matter, but you are who you are. You just got to embrace it instead of fight it.
that's it exactly. That's it. I told Tony a little bit ago, I done something really, I don't know. Oh, it was when I was trying to help him um, put the banister on the porch, and I looked at him and I said, you gotta love me. And he was like, yeah, I reckon.
That's what I tell my husband. I was like, you married this. You've been with me for 22 years. You've accepted this, buddy.
That's it exactly. That is it exactly.
I'm like,
Yeah,
we're here.
you can't get away now. So it's been 17 years next month. So
So
he's
that's what I
stuck with
told him. I said, sorry, it's done. Yeah.
Yep.
And we laugh about
Yep.
that all the time. I know. Yes. So
Mm.
what made you go into that degree that you got? What made you go into that? Decide this is what I want to do and start doing schooling for it.
Fascination.
Oh, okay.
Um, I had dealt with mental illness my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tony and I got married. And a year into our marriage, we find out he's bipolar. He is not bipolar. He has bipolar. Anyway, and so he went through a really well, just a little background on Tony too. I know he'll be speaking, but Tony was called to preach at 17 years old. For the next 15 years, Tony was an ordained minister and very powerful, very dynamic, very anointed.
Wow.
And yeah, and he was in a car accident one day, him and his partner going to work, and um, he said he didn't get hurt very bad. They were in, I think it was a little Suzuki Samurai or something like that. And he said he didn't get hurt very bad. But he said that's when he took his first painkiller.
Mm.
And for the next 20 years, he has a painkiller addiction. He stepped out of ministry. Him and his first wife got divorced. You know, it was a nasty divorce. She was devastated, you know, because here was her perfect minister husband, and now this,
Mm-hmm.
and then all the stuff that comes with addiction.
Yeah.
You know, the lies, the everything that comes with it. You know, just all the grossness that comes with it. And then for Tony, it was like he said, I'll never forget him telling me this. And you know, once we finally got past the addiction, and that was a long road. He and I even got married when he had just started back. He had been in rehab, and he was clean, and then so I got in on a good few years of that also, you know. And he was talking to me one night, and he said, you know, he said, babe, he said, I let so many people down. And he said, my congregation, he said, they trusted me, you know. He said, I was their spiritual leader, you know. And he said, and they trusted me, and I hurt so many of them, and I let so many of them down.
Oh.
And he said, I can't forgive myself for that. And he still hasn't to this day. He struggles so bad. And then he said, but the worst part was, he said, to backslide, he said, which is what I did. He said, to backslide, I had to trample back through the blood that Jesus shed for me and say, thanks, but no thanks. I've got this on my own. And when he said that to me, it was just like, babe, that's not the way Jesus works. You know this. Yes, did you backslide? Yes, but you also know that he is there with open arms, you know, saying, Tony, I'm not done with you yet. You know, yeah. I'm not done with you yet. And Tony said, it's so hard for me to forgive myself. He said, I just can't. He said, I feel like I am so unworthy. And he said, my fall was so hard and so fast. And but anyway, yeah. So he went through we didn't know he was that he had bipolar. You know, we knew he'd struggled with addiction, but after he was diagnosed, then it's like he started connecting the dots, you know, like, okay, that's why I'd get so angry over stuff and didn't understand why I was so angry and how I could be happy one minute and, you know, and furious the next minute. And, you know, and he said now, you know, knowing what he knows about bipolar and addiction, and then knowing how addiction exacerbates any type of mental illness, you know. And so he said, you know, it makes sense now, you know, but when you're going through it for 20 years, it's just like, it's chaos. It's complete chaos. And you don't understand yourself. You don't know why you're hurting the people you love.
Yeah.
You have no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just thankful that, you know, God brought him through that addiction, and you know, the bipolar we deal with, you know, he's medicated, and his medicine seems like it's working better now. He just had to have it increased, but it seems like it's working better now. He's learning better how to deal with things. I've even noticed because of NAMI, he hears things that I say or hears me talk about something, and it makes sense to him, and it's like something will click, and he'll be like, oh, I get it, and stuff that he may not have thought about before, but now he's starting to understand his illness better, and able to cope with it better. And if he's having a bad day, I'll say, babe, what's going on with your day? And he'll say, I'm having a bad bipolar day.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. That's what it is. Because you're like, well, I know what it feels like. This is what's going on. I get it.
Yeah. And I think it's good for him to recognize that, and he'll make a joke about it. It's like, yeah.
And I think that's, the coping with it. And I think sometimes you got to laugh at yourself, like we just talked about, because, this is what it is. This is what's going on, what I'm dealing with. And sometimes humor helps. It's helped me a lot of stuff. It has.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, my goodness, if I didn't have a sense of humor, I'd be in bad shape.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I can laugh at the dumbest stuff. It can be morbid, and I will somehow or another, my brain turns it into something funny. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong there, but I'm just like, this is horrible. I can't even believe I'm going to share this, but my cousin, my best friend in the whole world, she had ovarian cancer, and she has a warped sense of humor like I do. And she said, Lady Gaga's Poker Face came on the radio.
Yeah.
And we were on our way back from Lexington from the hospital. She just had treatment. And she said, hey, and I said, what? She said, will you play this at my funeral? I was like, well, anyway, we started laughing and we couldn't quit laughing. It was horrible. And nobody thinks that story's funny, but me and her. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, but I'm like you. I always say I have inappropriate laughter. That's what I got. And I'm like, people are probably like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with her? And I'm like, I'm sorry. It's just my obviously coping mechanism. Because I'm like, I think it's funny. I mean, yes.
It was like, because I didn't want to discuss her funeral, that wasn't even discuss that.
Yes.
And so, and then I think she knew that I was not ready to have that conversation, so she started, anyway, it turned into that, I mean, almost wrecking on 64 because we were laughing so hard I couldn't see the road. But it was But it's a beautiful thing that you remember that moment. You remember that, and it's joy, laugh, it's everything in one big ball. So I mean, it's beautiful either way. Because I'm like you, the laughing moments and a lot of points in my life is very special to me. Even though I'm like you, if I tell people, they're like, "Okay, Brandy, I don't know why you were laughing, but I'm like, you don't get it." It's one of them you had to be there things. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm like, yes, I'm fine. Yes. Well, one last question I always say is, what advice would you give someone that is living with a mental illness or has a family member that maybe just got diagnosed? Is there any advice you could kind of give them?
Talk about it. Talk about it with whoever wants to listen. If you have a good support system and they want to know how to help you or they want to know what they should know, talk about it. Get plans in place. If there's a moment of psychosis, get plans in place. Get things to where people know, okay, this is what's going on. This is what they said to do if this happened, and talk about it, make it normal.
Yes.
For to be able to discuss it openly and to have the support you need. And that's my advice. I wish we had talked about it, that so that I wasn't 42 years old when I find out, the real diagnosis.
Yes.
Because I think the more you talk about it, the more free you can be with it, the more you can laugh at it. And we all know that laughter is the best medicine. So let's do that, and then this may not be the popular thing to say, but take it to God, take everything to God, take everything.
Yeah.
And because me sitting here today is living proof that God was in the midst.
Yes.
So that's my advice. That's for everybody.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's amazing advice. I totally agree. I think that's a lot of the keys, God and laughter and so many things. Yeah. And thank you so much for coming on here and just for the laughs and, the cries. I tried to hold it in, so I could talk.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate it so much. And I mean, anytime I get a chance to tell people what an awesome mama I have, or an awesome husband I have, I'm all about it. So yeah.
Oh, that's so nice. Well, we said at the end, like I told you, all I do is play music, and you're welcome to dance, wave, or whatever. I give everybody the option.
Okay, sounds good. I can get my groove on.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me get our music here.
Okay.
Can you hear it?
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
We're good jammers.